The age of counterculture was a crazy time for the world, and IUP as well. The hair was long, the culture was psychedelic, and anti-war sentiment was spreading through the campus like a wildfire. But what many don't remember at the time was that television made huge advancements in effects and technology, as well as becoming a cultural force. Color recording cameras, pre-taped television shows, and multi-track audio are all examples of the changing times. And it was this era that the idea for IUP-TV began. This is the era we were born into. A great man once said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." This is true of many things, and IUP-TV was no different.
The guy that started the TV station here, his name was William McCavitt, because he was one of my instructors at Clarion. And he had started the television program here at IUP at Indiana. When it first started off, it was instructional based. People would do different classes, different subject matter, and they would be recorded. They would record their lectures, and then they would replay them later on. It was real simple, instructional.
Without a proper medium to broadcast, the studio was limited to taping lectures for the next 8 years. Shortly after a relocation to the basement of Davis Hall, the comm department gained an important right to broadcast over Channel 9.
We had a set built, or one of the grad students built a set that had one side was a bookshelf and the books, and the other side was just a backdrop for talk shows and news. And I remember in the early days, we did live programming. Half-hour live news, and then we went to a tape program for half an hour. And during that half an hour, we'd go down and turn the set around and bring in new chairs, and then went live with a talk show.
They always have done, even before my time, they always have wanted to do national news. They've always kind of patterned themselves after the national news, CBS, NBC, and ABC. They've followed that pattern. Students like that, because that's exciting, I suspect.
Although much content was produced and broadcasted over those early years, very little was documented and recorded. The content that was, unfortunately, has been lost over time. To this day, no footage from the 60s or the 70s is known to have survived. The 80s was a decade written in fantasy rather than reality. A complete withdrawal from the self-exploration of the 70s, the 80s treated society as one big all-inclusive family. Social consumerism was followed like a law, and everyone needed to fall in with the norm. And while on the surface this world seemed to look happy and carefree, a dark and worrisome reality always managed to seep through the cracks. As the station transitioned into the early 80s, more and more students were flocking to it in droves. With equipment that wasn't built to film in such a high demand, IUP-TV finally received a much-needed upgrade. What echoed in was nothing short of a golden age. With 14 television shows and crew numbers upwards of 30 each, even today, the 1980s still remain the highest student involvement IUP-TV ever had. And yet, one problem still persisted. They never shot anything outside of a studio. With the 80s nearing a close, the station finally received the person it needed to bring the students out of their comfort zones.
I arrived here in June of 1987. And I first started as the advisor to the television station, which I did that for 22 years. One of the things that I did when I became the advisor to the IUP-TV station was we started to do a telethon. We did an annual Coats for Kids telethon with the Salvation Army, and we did it at the Regency Mall, and then we did it at the Indiana Mall.
Everybody has got to just reach in their pocket, and you've got to put some money in that fishbowl. Remember, this is Coats for Kids. This is nothing else but Coats for Kids, the Salvation Army.
Over the years, Dr. Start has played a vital role in both raising the bar for the station and helping students create unique and independent content. It's a job he's done for the past 30 years, and one he still continues to do today. While every decade usually had something to define it, the 90s were a bit of an oddball in popular culture, mainly because the 90s had no popular culture. It was the decade of the underground, a society made up of niches and alternative outlets to popular culture. Although fiscally reminiscent of the 80s, the social vibe had no such connection to its recent ancestor. The 90s definitely weren't the most memorable time, mainly because they didn't reach the level of unity that the decades before it had. And although the 90s can never be as well defined as the 70s and 80s, this constant diversity in popular culture exploded through the medium of television.